This is Calm AF, a podcast for humans who are hard on themselves. A podcast for the overthinkers, people pleasers, perfectionists, and overachievers. I'm Kristen Finch, and I'm going to teach you how to quiet that incessant negative chatter in your head. Because you know what a person with a calm mind can do? Anything they want. Grab your coffee, gorgeous soul, because today's the day you get Calm AF. Hello, gorgeous soul. Welcome to Calm AF. Happy to be hanging out with you today. Hope you're having a gorgeous day. It is the most beautiful spring day here in Colorado, finally. We have had, listen, I'm not going to complain because I spent 40 years in the Midwest having Midwest winters where it's like gray and bitterly cold and windy for like 5 months straight. I'm not complaining about this Colorado winter, but I will say this. It has been a little grayer than usual, a little colder than usual here. This is not a complaint. This is just an observation. So today feels extra good. It's warm, warm, not just like, oh, it's not freezing. It's warm today. So if you notice the quality of today's episode sounds different, I am breaking all of the podcast recording rules. Dave is out of town, so I have decided. It felt so good. I was just sitting in my family room. The windows are open. The birds are chirping. The wind chimes are chiming. Spring is in the air. And the thought of going into the tiny podcast studio felt like a big hell no. So I'm breaking the rules and I'm just recording this into my phone, sitting on the couch with the windows open. So listen, we're just all going to have to deal with it because this is the only option for me today is to sit in the nice weather and record into my phone. All right. So today we are going to continue on talking about habits. I love talking about habits. I'm sure I've already said this, but for me, it's like the perfect sweet spot because it combines my two loves. It combines like magic and energy and manifesting with science, neural connections and neuroscience and neuroplasticity. So it's my two loves combined equals habits and future self habits. So I've been just having the best time talking about it. We're going to continue on today. So for the last few weeks, what we've been talking about is creating daily habits that align with your future self life, right? Because you know that if you want to make a lasting and sustainable change in your life, your daily habits will need some tweaking. And I talked about this in the last couple of episodes. Your past daily habits, what you have done on a daily basis in the past, created your current reality, which means if you want to create something different, something new, you need to change the habits that you're doing currently to align with how you want your future self's days to feel. Okay, we've already established that in the last few episodes. Definitely want to be creating new future self habits right now. But today, what I want to do is just take a break and share 5 habits that you are going to want to leave behind. Okay, these habits are not a part of your future self's daily life. And listen, when I was trying to decide which habits to focus on, I picked the ones that people often don't really think about, right? Because it's so ingrained in our daily lives. It's so ingrained in our daily culture that sometimes it's like, well, Kristen, doesn't everybody do that? Like these habits feel kind of harmless, but they really are sabotaging your progress towards your future self. So we're going to talk about 5 habits that are keeping you from your future self. So 5 habits that you want to give up, that you want to leave behind. You want to, if we're talking about that future self path, you're just going to take these habits out of your backpack, put them on the path, and leave them behind. Okay? So let's get into it. And don't mind the dogs barking and everything. It's fine. It's spring. It's all good. Let's talk about 5 habits. First of all, we're going to talk about complaining. Listen, your future self is not a whiner. Your future self is not complaining about all the things that they don't like, all the things that didn't go right, all the things that aren't fair, didn't happen how you wanted them to happen. How do I know this? Because when you complain, what you are doing is you are indulging in what you don't want. You are reinforcing the things that you don't like. By repeating that thought over and over, by complaining is saying something you don't like over and over. Okay? Thoughts that are thought on repeat over and over become hardwired neural connections. They become your beliefs. They become the neural connection that your brain will automatically go to. So everything you do is coming from those neural pathways. You can't create a life you like and love by focusing and hardwiring all of the things that you don't like and love. I really feel like this could be an entire episode on complaining because it really is fascinating what it does to the brain. Because for a lot of people are like, oh, I just needed to complain and now I feel better. Yeah, it seems that way because what happens is the pressure of the discomfort, right? Like there's something that you don't like, there's something that's not going well, and there is like all of the thought about it shouldn't be that way. It feels like this pressure builds, and then like complaining feels like the relief of it, like the release. The top of the head pops open and it all comes out in the form of complaining. So in a way, it does kind of make you feel better. You get like a little dopamine hit when you complain. But it's relieving the pressure in the same way that using alcohol or smoking weed or scrolling provides relief, right? Just the same way those things help you numb out, help you kind of forget what that discomfort is. It's the same thing with complaining. The relief is temporary. And the big picture here is that those temporary things that we're using, whether it's food, alcohol, or complaining, it's actually creating more problems in the long run, right? Because yes, it might feel better in this moment, but is drinking regularly to relieve your discomfort creating the future self life you want? No, it's the same with complaining. I know, it seems like it's not. It is. It is just another way of numbing out, right? So that is a habit you want to leave behind. You want to stop complaining. Now listen, does your future self only think like positive thoughts, unicorn and rainbow thoughts? No, your future self still has a human brain. Your future self still lives in this human world with other human beings. But what is different between now and then, between your current self and your future self, is that your future self knows that complaining is temporary and it's just making the manifesting take longer. So instead of complaining as a quick fix, your future self learns to regulate their nervous system and process their emotions in a more resilient way so that they don't need to complain to get that instant relief. All right, that's the first habit to give up. The next one is catastrophizing. So, what is catastrophizing? It's basically taking a situation, any situation, and hyperfixating on the worst possible outcome. What is the worst possible thing that could happen in this situation? And then assuming that is what is going to happen. That's catastrophizing. So, for example, you wake up and you're not feeling well. You're feeling run down. You're tired. Your throat's starting to hurt. And you assume that you have some rare disease and you are going to be dying in the next, 24 hours. Or catastrophizing might be your friend or your partner or your guy you're dating doesn't text you back immediately after you text. And so you go to the dark place and you decide you've done something terribly wrong. They've finally discovered that you're a horrible person and now they hate you and they will never see you ever again for the rest of your life. And you're going to end up alone in the world with no one to support you. That's catastrophizing. So catastrophizing takes little issues and makes them into major problems. And I want you to think about how that habit will stop you from reaching your goals and creating that future self life. Catastrophizing puts you in fight or flight mode so often that it becomes like if you aren't currently catastrophizing, then you are mentally, emotionally, and physically recovering from that catastrophizing. Think about what happens in your body when all that fight or flight is flowing, right? Like it takes you time to recover from that. So it's a habit that needs to be left behind. Again, you don't have to be perfect at this, but what I often teach my clients is when it's safe, go to the dark place, right? Ask yourself, if this catastrophic thing actually happened, what would I do? Right? So if your best friend or your boyfriend or your partner or whoever doesn't text you back immediately because they do hate you and they want to leave you forever and ever and they don't want to have anything to do with you, well, then what are you going to do? Solve for the problem. Go to the place. Instead of just catastrophizing in the background and letting that, just run your whole world for, however long you're in it, just pause and say, like, let me just answer the question. What would happen if, this worst case scenario were true? What would I do? And the answer most of the time is, well, I would just figure it out. And that often ends the catastrophizing. Okay, so that is the second habit to give up. The third habit is comparing yourself to everyone else. Listen, this habit is like a standard feature of the human brain. We are social creatures. We are always trying to figure out how to stay safe, how to not be rejected, how to not be abandoned by our pack. So to prevent that from happening, we are always hypervigilantly looking around and comparing ourselves to others as a way of like ranking our worthiness. So if someone else seems quote unquote better than me in some random way, that means they are higher up the worthy ladder, which makes me lower on the worthy ladder. Okay? So there are a lot of reasons to give up this habit of comparing yourself to others. There's the impact of the unworthy stories that you're hardwiring, which is setting the tone for everything you do. But also, I want you to think about what a huge waste of time it is. Okay? Because every minute you spend thinking about someone else, what they're thinking, what they're doing, how they're living, you are not thinking about your own life. Every minute you get on someone else's path is a minute you aren't on your path walking towards your future self life. Every minute you spend ruminating on how you need to be more like this person is a minute not spent thinking about how you want to feel and how to make that happen. Comparing yourself to everyone else is never productive unless, here's one teeny tiny caveat, unless you are truly, genuinely doing it from a place of neutral learning. Like if you see someone that's doing something that you really like, that really feels like it lights you up, it's aligning for you, then investigate why it feels like something that you want and how you can learn from it. That's the only time I think that comparing yourself is productive. Most of the time, that's not what you're doing. Most of the time, you are using it against yourself. Okay, so I want you to be aware of this habit. I want you to be noticing how often you are spending your life, your moments, not in your own path. The fourth habit to give up, negative self-talk. So in your head, you've got something that we in the Calm AF world refer to as the team. The team is this motley amalgam of inner voices that are chattering away. And they are just providing like nonstop, no interruption commentary on everything out there in your world, in your body, everything. It's just chatter, 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 chatter. So the team, there's a whole series on the team on the podcast. You can go back and search for it. There's like 5 episodes where I go deep into each of the team members. But for here, the team is comprised of the boss, who is in charge of keeping you perfect by following all the rules. It's like the dictator. And then there's the teenager and the toddler. They act out when the boss gets too strict, when the boss is just too much. And then there's the lizard, which is pretty much just scanning the world for shit to panic about. But all of these members of the team have distinctive voices. And these inner voices are not Calm AF. They are hypervigilant AF. They are triggered AF. They are judgy AF. If you've got a human brain, you have got a team chattering away. And its ultimate purpose is to keep you alive. But what you aren't taught is that you don't have to listen to these thoughts. You don't have to believe every single thought that you think. The biggest problem with this habit of negative self-talk is that if there's no one challenging the chatter, it becomes your true story. It becomes what you believe about yourself. And all of your decisions, everything that you do is made through this identity story. If you want to create a life that you like and love, it's not going to manifest with an unchallenged, unmanaged brain, with all of this unquestioned negative self-talk. This is a habit that does require support to give up, because especially if your negative chatter is the loudest voice in your head for most of your life, it's hard to see anything differently. The reason I get coached is because I can't see my own blind spots. Nobody can. Unlearning negative chatter is something that is heavily covered in Calm AF Life, both in the course. There's a whole bunch of modules all about unlearning this negative chatter, and we talk about this constantly in our coaching calls. So that is the Calm AF Life program. That spring sale, that 25% off, is still happening right now. So if you're ready to stop that incessant negative chatter in your head, now is a great time to join Calm AF Life. What is it called? The coupon code is Spring AF to get that 25% off. All right. Last one. Let's talk about one more behavior that is definitely not a daily habit of your future self, and that is procrastination. And procrastination is something that lots of us struggle with. How many times have you meant to get something done, but instead you're like, before I get started, let me just get on my phone. And then you lose 2 hours of your life just scrolling, going from app to app, whatever. Like, what are the things? We all procrastinate. The struggle is real. But here's why I'm sharing this today. Making the changes that you want to make in your life in order to create a life that you want to live requires that you be taking action, taking steps towards what you want every day. Now, again, you don't have to move lightning fast on this future self path, but procrastination is going to keep you standing still. It will keep you stuck. Just standing on the path, knowing what you want, but not taking action isn't going to get you there. So why is this such a thing that we struggle with? You would be hard pressed to find a person that doesn't struggle with procrastination. And again, the bigger answer to this is because we don't know how to regulate our nervous systems. We've never been taught in our lives how to just feel our feelings instead of being shut down by our feelings. We know how to avoid our feelings. We are experts at avoiding our feelings. And that is the reason why you procrastinate, is because you are avoiding fear. Fear of how it's going to feel if you try to take some steps forward and you fail. Fear of how it will feel if you try to do something and end up being wrong. Fear of how it feels to be judged by other people. Fear of other people's opinions. Fear of embarrassment or disappointment or confusion. Which means if you want to stop procrastinating so you can get to your future self life, you've got to be building your resilience to uncomfortable feelings. Every time you choose to take action over procrastinating, you are one step closer. And like I said, you don't need to be lightning fast to quickly create a life you like and love, but you do need to be taking consistent action, which means you gotta give up the procrastination. All right, gorgeous souls, there you go. 5 habits that are going to make the journey from where you are now to where you want to be take longer and feel shittier. Come break these habits with me in Calm AF Life. That spring sale coupon code is Spring AF. I hope you have an amazing, gorgeous day. I love you so much. I'll see you next time. If you love this podcast, you will love Calm AF Life. It's a self-paced, lifetime access DIY course that teaches you all the concepts that I talk about here, from nervous system regulation to manifesting with ease. And since we know that true change doesn't happen just because you know what to do, you also get an all-access pass to coaching calls and accountability so you don't stay stuck and you don't give up. The best investment you could ever make is in yourself. Calm AF Life is here for you now. Life's not waiting. Let's get you aligned with your Calm AF self, gorgeous soul. I cannot wait to meet you. Go to KristenFinch.com and join me today.